Because of its very uniqueness, India cannot be an easily replicable model, but it does offer experiences for others. The world recognizes both the singularity and the relevance of India's progress. So put aside those who are steeped in political polemics, the rest of the world gets it, that a civilizational state is rising again, that it will display its own personality, that it will speak and think for itself, and that it will radiate how it is rooted in its own culture. The more confident India is, the more expressive it will be on the world stage. Only then can it overcome the image of being a poor cousin mired in its colonial history. In this endeavor, India is uniquely positioned to bridge modernity and tradition. It will be more impactful by embracing its heritage, not by diminishing it. A combination of cultural beliefs and modernizing agenda help address many current dilemmas. Its historical characteristics are a source of strength once they are approached with confidence. For example, the appreciation of pluralism is as much a derivative of long-standing social practices as of a constitutional mandate. Similarly, stronger nationalism at home coexists traditionally with an enthusiastic internationalism abroad. In fact, Gurumurthy ji made that point speaking about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So remember, rising India wants to engage the world more, not less. India matters when it is more authentically India. Given its growing political stature and economic abilities, India has to credibly also address the expectation that the world has of it. Neighbors would naturally like India to modulate its presence in their country as per their convenience. From the Indian perspective, it is not always easy to get the balance right. Doing too much looks too intrusive. Showing reticence can be taken as indifference, if not weakness. The optimal Indian strategy is therefore to rise above the day-to-day developments and create structural linkages. Those ingredients of connectivity, commerce, and contacts are the core of our neighborhood-first approach. As its profile rises, Indian policymakers are also discovering that expectations are not confined to their immediate vicinity. The global South watches India's positions and its performance very carefully, drawing conclusions from both. In the last decade, a long tradition of South-South cooperation has developed into something much deeper. It captures domains where Indian capabilities have a direct relevance for the aspirations of Africa, of Latin America, and of Asia. Some of that has taken the form of development projects in energy, digital, manufacturing, education, or connectivity. That has been supported by exchanges of experience and best practices, including training. It is not just the immediate benefits of these endeavors that matter. They eventually help create more options. Especially since 2014, India has taken active steps to empower the global South. Lines of credit and grant assistance have been vehicles to execute socio-economic projects of varying levels in as many as 78 countries across the world. Unlike initiatives that have been driven by some others for extractive objectives, India's efforts are aimed at ensuring more self-reliance. And believe me, the partners really appreciate that. India matters to the global south because there are very few others who have taken such an approach. India's political choices have also enabled democratic values to achieve a universal status. In fact, it is India which has made a difference, not just by building a modern democratic polity under testing economic conditions, but by actually drawing on its age-old heritage of pluralism as a way of doing so. And that is why today we can lay claim to being mother of democracy. Furthermore, in contrast to challenges that others faced in recent years, India's democratic delivery has only become stronger. Whether it is in terms of electoral participation, broadening of political representation, or even credibility of polls, the effectiveness of the democratic process is, if anything, more and more apparent. India's working democracy is an important reason for the world why India matters. How then is India faring on the world stage? The change of global power distribution has many facets and expressions. It may be visible in economic activities, trade and investment figures, technological capabilities, or market shares. But it is also evident in the key debates of the day. Debates about climate change, about terrorism, black money, taxation, or even about pandemics. Last year, in fact, we saw an intense debate about energy, food, and fertilizer security, again, something which Gurmurthy ji referred to. Now, India has emerged in all these issues as a much more influential voice, a voice that cannot be ignored anymore in any conversation across the world. Not just that, India has also been an energetic source of ideas and initiatives. Think about it. There was the International Solar Alliance, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. These were the two big initiatives in the field of climate action. And now, in fact, last year, Prime Minister has proposed the Mission Life, which is how do we get the entire world to adopt an environmentally friendly lifestyle. And this year, again, at India's initiative, the UN has declared it as the International Year of Millets. Then there is the question of shouldering responsibilities. Responsibilities that may go beyond our shores. The record of addressing human and disaster situations since 2014 has clearly established India as a first responder in the Indian Ocean and its littorals. And I want, since I am here in Chennai, I want people to remember something which happened almost 2 decades ago, the 2004 tsunami. At the time of the 2004 tsunami, a lot of the Indian Ocean countries waited for help to come from elsewhere. Yes, India did its part, but the bulk of the efforts were American, they were Japanese, they were European. Today, actually, in the Indian Ocean, India is actually the first and primary responder, whether it is in Sri Lanka, Maldives, Myanmar, Mozambique, in fact, as far away as Fiji. So, I think it's important for the citizens of India to appreciate that what India is saying, doing, and shaping today is a very powerful reason why it matters in the calculations of others. This image has also been sharpened by the independence of thought and action that India has displayed during the course of its ongoing rise. Our considered stance on the Ukraine conflict is a recent example. The fundamental goal is to maximize freedom of choice. At times, it is done by keeping a distance. At times it is done by voicing an opinion, as you saw. But on occasion, it is also served by working with others on specific issues and designated theatres. After all, why should we not take advantage of convergences with other powers to advance our own objectives? Joining and then taking forward the Quad is a very relevant example, because this has been one very important diplomatic, I would say, initiative which has gathered momentum in the last 3 or 4 years. And here, it is very equally important not to allow other nations a veto on our choices and our thinking. The same willingness to work with other nations is also on display where this group called I2U2 is concerned. This is in West Asia, with Israel, with the United Arab Emirates, and with the United States. India today matters because our diplomacy is keeping pace with the changing world. And because the Modi government is prepared to take bold steps that further India's rise. This then brings us to increase, the issue of how to increase the weight and stature of India in international affairs. A nation that sets its house in order clearly counts for more in a global discourse. Now, some of that obviously pertains to the quality of governance. Some of it pertains to the development of capabilities. Progress in addressing long-standing vulnerabilities, such as in Jammu and Kashmir, is naturally welcome. Where our periphery is concerned, stronger structural linkages expand the space for India's activities. The extended neighborhoods that represent the next circle in all directions, including the maritime one, also need sustained attention. With the rest of the world, engaging all the major powers gives India the most advantage. At the same time, establishing a footprint in regions that may be more distant, less historically familiar to us, is equally important. The bottom line today is that India has finally broken out of the box that its competitors helped to devise. A 360-degree outlook under the Modi government is one more reason why India matters. The direction of world politics also has a bearing on how India is perceived by the international community. We have a unique ability to bridge both the North-South divide and the East-West one. This has given us a particular value as we take over the G20 presidency. But if you look at other situations, other challenges, for example, in a more sensitive post-COVID environment, we have a great potential as a trusted source of technology. When it comes to diversifying production and supply chains, we could also be the beneficiary of the phenomenon of what today is called friendshoring. On the health front, our credentials, which were magnified during the COVID as the pharmacy of the world, have clearly been strengthened. Obviously, we have to do our part in terms of the infrastructure, the policies, the practices, to encourage the world to rely more on India. As an open society and a market economy, with such a large reservoir of talent, India can add to the global engines of growth. At a time when the de-risking of the global economy is so important, this really matters. That India matters and will matter more with the passage of time can be convincingly asserted. Like so many other developments in politics and history, it must never be taken as a predestined. There will always be doubters amongst us who cannot believe that our nation can even dare to think big. There are vested interests too, who will masquerade as political correctness and global consensus. We have seen for too long attempts to distance us from our history, from our traditions, and from our culture. At the end of the day, much will ride on our national unity and our collective purpose. Being a serious global player requires ambition and strategy to be backed by initiative, perseverance, and energy. Our own people and leadership must embrace their destiny to realize their aspirations. Keeping the faith and getting down to work are good ways to demonstrate that. How then does India look to the world today? It is among the few large economies with a robust recovery. We are the fifth in the world today, likely to be the third by the end of the decade, maybe even sooner. We are a polity that over the last 8 years have shown the will to take tough decisions and embark on serious reforms. We are taking big strides on human-centric development, on digital public goods, on green growth. India has stayed strong during the COVID storm and even gone out to help others. When our national security has been challenged, we have stood our ground and stood our ground very firmly. Breaking from the past, we are showing zero tolerance for terrorism. This is an India that knows how to take care of its own people. How to take care of its own people at home and how to take care of its people abroad as well. This new India shapes the global agenda and influences its outcomes. Today, it is this India which has the vision, the leadership, the willpower, and as you can see over the last 8 years, the record. This is the India that the world sees, and that is why, in the eyes of the world, this is an India that matters more and more. So thank you very much for your attention. Namaskar.